I came when you had nothing left, not when you were managing, not when you still had options on the table. I came at the exact moment the last option ran out, when the weight in your chest made breathing feel like work, when you closed your eyes that night not sure you wanted to open them again. That is where I stepped in. Not before, not after. Right there in the middle of the wreck. You were not holding on by a thread when I arrived. The thread had already snapped. And that is not a coincidence. That is not me arriving late. It is me arriving at the only moment when what I bring can actually take root. When there is nothing left of your own effort to get in the way. I need you to understand something about how I work. I do not wait for you to compose yourself before I come near. I do not hold back until you are presentable, until you have it together, until things look better. I come into the mess. I walk into the wreck. That has always been my way. That is my way right now with you. You have spent a long time being strong for the people around you, not because it felt natural, but because showing what was really happening inside carried a cost. You learned that early. Vulnerability got you wounded. Openness made you a target. Honesty made people uncomfortable or careless or cruel. So you built something solid around the real version of yourself. Walls that were never meant to be permanent, but that became the architecture of your daily life. Those walls protected you. I understand why you built them. But the same structure that kept pain from getting in also locked pain inside with no way out. You have been sealed in there with it, carrying it alone, managing it quietly while continuing to function on the outside. Over time, the weight of that became heavier than the original wound. Declare, I receive this, if these words are reaching your spirit right now. Today I am asking you to bring those walls down. Not for the world. The world does not need to see this, but for me. Because I cannot reach what stays buried. I cannot restore what you will not let me touch. The healing I am bringing is not surface level. To get to what is underneath, I need access to what has been locked away. There are things you said out loud and things you swallowed in silence. There are nights that would not end and mornings you got up anyway. There are moments when you held it together in front of others and fell apart the second you were alone. I know all of it. Not as a record against you. As the exact landscape I am stepping into today with full intention to change. You have been trying to understand why this happened to you. Your mind has gone over it hundreds of times, looking for the angle that makes it make sense. The answer that would make the pain feel worthwhile. You have not found it, because that kind of answer does not come from analysis. It does not come from working through it harder or thinking about it longer. What I am bringing you today goes past the mind. It reaches the place where the damage actually lives. What broke you was not random. I am not telling you it was good or that it should have happened the way it did. But I will tell you this. I did not leave you to face it alone. I have been present in this situation longer than you have been aware of me. Every turn it took, I was already there, not watching from a safe distance. Inside the situation with you, working. You are still here. Let that settle for a moment. Everything that came against you, and you are still here. That is not just your resilience. Your resilience alone would have run dry long before now. What kept you standing when your own strength gave out was not your strength at all. It was something holding you that you did not place there yourself. I am the one who held you through the nights that should have broken you. I am the one who made a way when the weight was beyond what any person could carry on their own. I am not telling you this so you feel indebted. I am telling you so. You know what kind of God you are dealing with. The one who does not release what he holds. The one who does not abandon what he started. That is who is speaking to you right now. The pain you are carrying is not something I overlooked. There is no version of what you have been through that exists outside my awareness. I know the exact shape of what broke you. I know what you said to others and what you said to no one. I know the cost of the nights that had no end and the mornings you chose to stand anyway. None of it is beyond what I can reach. None of it is too far gone for what I intend to do. You are standing in what looks like ruin. I am standing in what I am about to build. Both things are true at the same time. The wreckage is real, and so is what I am about to do with it. My child, this is not the end of your story. It is the part of your story where I arrive. There is something that needs to be said about this moment you are in. Not every person who reaches this point stays long enough to hear what I have to say. Some leave, some shut down. Some manage the pain into numbness and go on without it ever really changing. You stayed. Whether that was a decision you made consciously or just the absence of enough strength to go anywhere else, you stayed. And that matters, because what I am bringing into this space requires you to be here for it. And you are here. The loneliness of suffering is its own category of pain. You can endure tremendous things if someone is walking alongside you. You can bear almost anything if the weight is shared. But when the pain is yours alone, when you carry it invisibly, when no one around you can see it or fully understand what it is costing you, that is when it becomes almost unbearable. That is the kind of pain you have been living with. You tried to describe it. You looked for the words, and either the words were not there, or when you found them, the person you gave them to could not hold them properly. They offered advice when you needed presence. They told you to be stronger when you needed acknowledgement. They moved on before you were ready. And after enough of that, you stopped trying. You sealed the pain inside and carried it alone. I need you to hear this clearly. Your pain is not dramatic. It is not an overreaction. There is nothing excessive about what you are feeling. You are genuinely hurt. The wound is real. And the fact that others could not see it, or could not sit with it, or did not have the capacity to stay, that says something about them. It says nothing about you. Say, "Yes, Lord, if you are ready to let me into this today." Here is what I want you to know about every moment you felt completely alone in this. I was there, not in a distant way, not as a passive observer recording what happened. Present, engaged, close. In the silence of the nights that had no end, I was in that silence. In the moments you could not speak what you were going through, I already knew. You were not unheard simply because no human voice answered. I moved quietly in those seasons. A thought that arrived out of nowhere and steadied you for one more day. A moment of unexplained peace in the middle of the worst stretch. Something that reached you at exactly the right time and felt like too much of a coincidence to be random. Those were not accidents. Those were deliberate, quiet interventions, but mine. You cannot know how many things I turned back from you in the darkest stretch. How many times I redirected what was heading toward you. The battles you never had to fight because I stopped them before they reached you. You did not see any of that. You were not meant to, but it happened. And you are still here in part because of it. The loneliness told you that you were forgotten. It told you that your situation was too small for heaven's attention, or too complicated for a solution. or that you had been left to navigate it on your own. Every one of those was a lie. The loneliness of pain is one of the cruelest distortions in existence, because it takes a wound that is already real and adds a false verdict to it. That verdict is not what I say about you. You are not a person I am tolerating from a distance. You are not a case number. You are not someone whose prayers are stacking up unanswered. You are the one I am speaking to right now, directly, specifically, with full attention. This is not a general broadcast. It is a personal word, and what I have to say to you is shaped by your actual situation, your history, your story. I know every detail of it. Your suffering did not happen in a vacuum. I was watching, not like a distant audience observing a spectacle, but like a father who cannot leave the room no matter what happens. There is no depth of pain that put you outside my reach. There is no darkness that made you invisible to me. You felt alone. That feeling was real. But the feeling was not the truth. The truth was that I was right there. I know what it cost you to keep going on the days you had no reason to. I know the specific conversations that cut deeper than they should have. I know the moment you realized a certain person was not going to come through for you. I know the night you decided not to ask for help anymore because asking had produced too much disappointment. I know all of it. None of it changed how I see you. None of it altered what I intend to do in your life. You have been seen, not from a vantage point outside your pain, but from inside it. That is where I have been all along, and now I am moving, not just to comfort you, but to change the actual situation. What I am doing goes beyond words that lift you for a season. It goes to the source. It addresses the root. And when I am finished, the isolation you carried will not just be managed. It will be replaced by something you have not yet experienced. The deep, settled knowledge that you are held. The double weight you have been carrying, the actual pain and the isolation of carrying it, ends here. Not because the circumstances have all changed yet, but because I am stepping into both. Into the wound itself, and into the empty space around it that felt so hollow. I am filling that space. You are not alone in this. You have not been. And from this point forward, that truth needs to settle in you like a foundation. Not a feeling that comes and goes, but a fact you return to even when the feeling is gone. What I am about to do in your life is not a surface adjustment. It is not a patch over the damage. Many things that call themselves healing are really just management. They keep the wound from getting worse, but they do not close it. They reduce the symptoms without reaching the cause. What I am bringing is different. I am going to the origin of the pain, the actual source. And that requires something from you that is harder than endurance. It requires honesty about what is actually there. There are rooms inside you that have been locked for a long time, not out of stubbornness, out of protection. You shut those doors because what was behind them was too heavy to carry and too dangerous to expose. You learned that bringing certain things into the light meant becoming vulnerable in ways that had cost you before. So you locked the doors and kept moving. Life, to outside observers, appeared to continue normally. But those rooms do not stay still. What is sealed inside does not remain contained forever. It finds other exits. It surfaces as responses that seem disproportionate, as a heaviness with no clear source, as a pattern that repeats across different situations and different people, because the root of it has never been addressed. You have noticed this. You have wondered why certain wounds keep reopening. The answer is that the cause was never removed. It was only covered. That is what I am here to change. Not with a temporary measure, with actual removal of the root. This process does not depend on your ability to explain what happened or your ability to make sense of it. It does not require you to have the right words. It only requires that you bring what you have carried and place it in my hands without holding part of it back. That is the condition. Not performance, not perfection. Just surrender of the weight. There is an act of faith I want to speak to you about in this moment. Something that matters. Not because I need anything from you, but because the act itself changes the posture of your heart. When you release something of real weight in genuine trust, you are making a declaration in the unseen that your security does not rest in what you hold, but in who holds you. My child, I am asking you to place a portion of what you have, something of real weight, upon the altar of this work, as gold laid on the scales of this calling. Let it be a seed sown into deep water, an offering set on stone, not held back in fear. This is proof that your trust rests in my hand to provide, and that your heart no longer clings to lack. What you release in faith does not leave your life. It moves ahead of you into the harvest I'm preparing. There is a difference between believing in my provision in theory and acting as though it is real. What you release in genuine trust becomes a point of activation, not because of the amount, but because of what the act declares about where your confidence rests. It declares that I am your source, that what you have comes from me and can be returned to me, that you are not holding on to survival with clenched hands, but walking open-handed with a God who does not run short. The healing I am bringing is comprehensive. It is not confined to the emotional. It is not limited to the spiritual. Every area that has suffered damage is within the range of what I am addressing now. The places that have been stuck for years, the doors that have seemed permanently closed, the ground that has felt like it produces nothing, no matter how much effort you put in. I am moving through all of it, not in sequence, in fullness. You have been reaching toward me for a long time. Some of those prayers were spoken with full faith. Some were spoken with doubt, but you said them anyway. Some were spoken when you had almost nothing left to believe with. Just the decision to reach out one more time, even though the last time felt like silence. I received all of it, not based on the strength of the faith behind each prayer, but because you kept coming. That persistence is its own kind of faith. I have not missed a single moment of it. The thing about deep healing is that it asks you to feel things you have been successfully avoiding. That is not punishment. It is the only way through. You cannot drive around a wound to get past it. You have to go through it to reach the other side. But you do not go through it alone. I am in the going through with you. Not watching, not coaching from a distance. Present in every part of it, carrying what you cannot carry, moving through what would stop you on your own. What is coming on the other side of this is not a slightly improved version of what you have known. It is new ground, a life that does not look like the one you have been managing. I am not restoring you to where you were before the pain. I am taking you somewhere you have not been yet. The destination I am building toward is not a return to the past. It is a forward movement into something that has been waiting for this exact season, for the work happening right now to be complete. My child, the doors I open are not the ones you could have unlocked yourself. The path I am carving is not one you could have found on your own. What is ahead of you was designed for who you are becoming through this, not who you were when it started. It was always the plan. The plan has not changed. It is still in motion. There is something that happened in you during the hardest stretch. Something that did not happen because of the pain, but that could not have surfaced any other way. The difficulty did not manufacture it. It uncovered it. Certain things in a person only become visible under pressure. Certain strengths only emerge when the comfortable options are removed. What I saw in you in your lowest season was not a weaker version of you. It was a version you had never had to bring to the surface before. I watched how you moved through what should have stopped you. How you got up on days when you had nothing left. How you kept reaching, even a threat of it, in conditions where reaching made no logical sense. That is not ordinary. That is not something every person does. And it did not come from nowhere. It was always in you. The pressure just gave it a reason to appear. Joseph is someone I want you to think about. Not as a tidy parable, but as a real account of how I work. He was betrayed by those closest to him. He was sold and discarded, and left in a place with no exit and no advocate. Years passed without any visible change in his situation. The conditions around him had no reason to produce anything good. And yet, I was moving in every season, including the ones that looked like nothing. When the moment arrived, it arrived completely. The reversal was total. What had been used to break him became the exact context through which everything I had promised him was fulfilled. What I want you to hold from that is this. Joseph did not understand what I was doing while I was doing it. He was not walking through those years with a clear map. He was walking with uncertainty, with grief, with the weight of injustice that had no explanation. The faithfulness was not based on clarity. It was based on something else. A refusal to let the circumstances define who he was. That is what I am asking of you. Not that you understand every step, that you stay. What the long season produced in you is real, even if you cannot name it yet. There is a steadiness in you now that was not there before, a capacity to hold difficulty without immediately falling apart. A way of moving through things that carries more depth than it used to. You may not feel that. You may feel depleted. But depletion and depth are not the same thing. What was uncovered in you through this does not disappear when the feeling of strength is low. I also want to speak to the wounds that came from other people. The ones who should have stayed and did not. The ones who promised and did not deliver. The ones who saw you struggling and moved on. I know those specific wounds. I know which ones are still open. I know which ones you have tried to close on your own by deciding that needing others is a liability. Those conclusions are understandable. They will also limit your future if they stay in place. What I am going to do about those wounds is not ask you to simply forgive and move on as though nothing happened. Forgiveness is real, and I will walk you through it. But it is not a feeling you generate on command. It is a process, and I will be in it with you. What I will say now is this. What those people did is not the final word on what you are worth. I am the one who determines that, and what I say is different from what their actions communicated. The part of you that has been guarded since those wounds, the part that holds back, that expects disappointment before it arrives, that has quietly decided trust is too high a cost. I see that part. I am not going to force it open, but I'm going to work on the damage underneath it, steadily, until the guardedness no longer has the same reason to exist. That work has already begun. There are things you experienced that no amount of reframing changes. Some of what you went through simply needed to be mourned, not explained, not turned into a lesson. Mourned. Grief over real loss is not a failure of faith. It is the honest response of a person who loved and lost, who invested and was not returned to. I allowed you the full weight of that. I still do. But grief was never meant to become a permanent residence. It was meant to move, to pass through and leave something changed on the other side. What I am bringing you into now involves movement, out of the ground where you have been standing, and into territory that is already prepared. That move is not a betrayal of the past. It is simply what comes next, and I am the one leading it. You are not going to this new place the way you would have gone before all this happened. Something in the way you move has changed. The way you listen is deeper. The way you read situations is sharper. The way you extend to others who are struggling is more direct and more real, because you are speaking from lived ground, not theory. These are not consolation prizes for what you went through. They are genuine capacities. They belong to you now. I want to be clear about something. The difficulty you went through was not payment for what I am about to give you. I do not operate that way. What I bring freely, not as a reward for suffering, not a settlement for what you endured. What happened in the difficult season has value not because it earned something, but because it changed something. The change is real. It is in you, and I am going to build on it. There is a version of your story that other people need to hear, not to make your pain useful to them before it has been dealt with in you. But eventually, when the time is right, what you have lived through will be exactly what someone else needs. Not a polished account with the struggle edited out, the real account, with the weight still in it. That kind of testimony opens something in a person that no amount of doctrine can. I know when that time will come. You do not need to carry that as a pressure now. Just know that nothing you went through was wasted. I do not waste anything. You have reached the point where what I am doing is going to become visible. There is a season of hidden work that comes before every visible shift, and I will not apologize for the hiddenness. What is built underground is what determines how high the structure above it can rise. The work I have been doing in the unseen season is approaching completion, and what comes out of it is not going to be subtle. The situation you are looking at right now, the one that appears to have no door, no exit, no movement, is not the final picture. What looks like a sealed wall to you looks different from where I stand. I see what's on the other side. I see the route. I see the timing, and I am already moving in it. Your job is not to figure out how it opens. Your job is to stay positioned so that when it does, you are standing there to walk through. Let me tell you about Moses at the water's edge, not the version that sounds neat in retrospect. The actual version. A massive force was closing in from behind. An impossibly wide body of water stood in front. There was no path in either direction. Everyone standing beside him understood what that meant. The fear in that moment was not small, and it was not irrational. The situation was, by every human measure available, finished. That is precisely when I moved. Not before the fear. Not when the confidence was high. Not when the plan was clear. I moved when the situation was fully impossible. When there was no strategy left to try. No combination of effort and ingenuity that could produce a way through. The water divided because there was nothing else to open. My power moves without competition when every other option is off the table. That is the position you are in right now. Stop reading it as catastrophe. It is actually the position of readiness for what only I can do. Declare, I trust you, Lord. if you are choosing to believe this today. What I am opening for you in this next season is not something you could have accessed before now. The door I am bringing you to requires the person you have become through this, not the person you were at the start. There are levels of responsibility ahead that would have broken you before this season. There are relationships ahead that required you to be a certain kind of person before they could survive contact with you. What is coming was always coming, but it needed you to be someone specific to receive it without it destroying you. The new ground I am releasing includes territory in your relationships, the connections that have been dry or painful or absent. I am moving in those. Not every broken relationship will be rebuilt. Some closures were right and final. But new ground is opening. People are being positioned. Connections that carry real weight and purpose are being drawn toward your life. You have not seen this yet. You will. The new ground I am releasing also includes the practical, material dimensions of your life. The financial strain that has gripped your situation, I see it. I know what it has cost in stress, in limitation, in the constant calculation of what is possible and what is not. That grip is being loosened. I am moving in the practical places. Not because you are more deserving now, but because my timing operates on a pattern that yours does not always follow. My provision for your life was never absent. The delivery is arriving now. There is a pace to what I do that does not always match the pace you want. I work on foundations before I build above them. I prepare conditions before I send what is needed into them. And the preparation often happens in ways you cannot observe. In the interior of situations, in the hearts of people being moved toward you, in circumstances converging in sequences you would not be able to engineer if you tried. What looks like stillness is rarely stillness. It is preparation at a level below what you can see. I want you to stop measuring my activity by what is visible on the surface. The surface is always the last place change becomes apparent. By the time a shift is visible to your eyes, it has already been in motion beneath the surface for a long time. What you are about to see, the movement you are about to witness in your circumstances, did not begin today. It began in the unseen, in the work I was doing while you were still wondering whether I was there. The miracle I am releasing does not require perfect conditions. It does not require your environment to cooperate first. It goes ahead of you and rearranges what needs rearranging. It softens what has been hard. It opens what has been sealed. It returns what was lost. You do not have to engineer any of this. You have to trust the one who is already engineering it. What this new season requires of you is not more effort. It is a different kind of engagement. Less striving, more alignment, less forcing, more following. The discipline I am asking for is not the kind that grinds against the obstacle until something breaks. It is the kind that stays close to me, that moves when I move, waits when I say wait, goes when I say go. That operating mode produces results that effort alone cannot reach. You have tried effort alone. You know what it produces. Now try this. Those who love me are not navigating this life alone. You have a God who goes before you into the days you have not yet entered, who sees the terrain before you arrive at it, who prepares the way while you are still walking toward it. That is not a metaphor. It is the actual pattern of how I work, and it is how I am working for you right now. Ahead of you, clearing ground, making room, arranging what needs to be in place before you arrive. There is something I need to address directly, because it may be the thing blocking you more than anything else. You want to understand before you move. You want the explanation before the trust. You want the full picture before you commit to the next step. And I understand that impulse. You were built with a mind that reasons, that weighs, that evaluates. I gave you that. I do not despise it. But there is a dimension of what I am doing that your reasoning cannot access. There are layers of this situation that your analysis cannot reach. When you demand to understand all of it before you will trust me, you are asking me to operate within the limits of your perspective, which is a perspective that does not have all the information. I have all the information. You have some of it. The gap between those two things is exactly where faith operates. I am not asking you to be mindless. I am asking you to acknowledge the limits of your own view and trust the one with the wider one. That is not weakness. That is the most sensible response available to a person who genuinely believes they are dealing with God. If I am who I say I am, then walking without full understanding is not reckless. It is the only rational thing to do. There have been directions I gave you that did not make sense at the time, paths that seemed illogical, closed doors you pushed against for a long time before accepting the closure, open doors you walked through reluctantly, not sure why you were going that way. In each case, what seemed strange from your position had a reason from mine. I was not being arbitrary. I was operating from knowledge you did not have access to yet. There is a version of trust that only becomes possible after you have been through what you have been through. The kind built on something more than inspiration or good circumstances. The kind that holds in conditions where every visible indicator argues against it. That is the trust you have been developing. It did not feel like development while it was happening. It felt like surviving. But the result is a depth of reliance that cannot be produced any other way. You are not the same person who entered this season. The way you process things has changed. You do not react the way you used to. The things that used to send you into a spiral take longer to reach that point, or do not reach it at all. The people and situations that used to have a hold over you have less grip now. That is not something you manufactured. That is the result of real work being done. And that change is permanent. You are not going to slide back to who you were before this. The identity I am establishing in you is not dependent on your circumstances being comfortable. It does not require external validation to hold its shape. It is not contingent on people understanding you, or approving of what you're doing, or believing in where you're going. It is rooted in what I say about you. And what I say does not change with the season. It does not adjust based on your performance or your feelings or the state of your situation. What I say is this: you're mine. You're called. You're equipped for what is ahead. The path is not fully visible from where you stand. That is not a design flaw. That is how I walk with people, close enough that they need to stay close to me to see the next step. That proximity is not a disadvantage. It is the safest position there is. Walk with me in this, not ahead of me, running on assumptions about where I am going, not behind me, waiting until everything is certain before you move. Beside me, one step at a time, close enough to hear when direction comes. That is the pace that produces the greatest results, not because it is the most efficient, but because it keeps you in position where I can work through you, not just for you. There are people I am going to connect you with in this next season who carry something you need, and you carry something they need. These connections are not accidental. They are arranged. They will not all announce themselves, obviously. Some will arrive quietly and only become clear over time. Your job is to stay open, not naive, but genuinely open to the new, to the unexpected, to the person who does not fit the category you would normally look in. The ones you carry in prayer, those you love most deeply, the people whose struggles sit in your heart even when you have no words for them. I see them too. I am not working only in your life. I am working in theirs. The prayers you have lifted for them have not been lost. They have reached me. And the work I am doing in you is not isolated from them. What changes in you creates movement in the space around you. The people you are closest to will feel it, even if they cannot name what shifted. The new identity I am giving you does not erase what you have been through. It does not require you to minimize it or pretend it was nothing. What you survived is part of your story. I am not rewriting that. What I am doing is writing what comes next, and what comes next does not begin with what happened to you. It begins with who you are now, the person who came through, the person who stood on the other side. That is the starting point I am working from. And it is a far stronger starting point than you realize. There is authority that comes from real experience, not the kind of authority that is given by title or position, the kind that comes from having actually been in the low places and come back. When you speak to someone else who is in that place, someone going through what you went through, they will hear something in your voice. They will know that what you are saying is not borrowed, that it was paid for. That kind of voice has a reach that no amount of polish or theory can produce. I'm going to use that voice. At the right time, in the right place, I will put you in front of exactly the person who needs to hear it. Everything I have spoken to you today comes down to this. I am done waiting for the right moment. This is it. Not the moment after this one. Not the version of this where you finally feel ready, or the circumstances finally cooperate. This moment, right now, with all its uncertainty and exhaustion and open questions, this is the moment I chose. And I do not choose moments carelessly. The blessing I am releasing is not still on its way. The decree has been made. What I set in motion from my throne is not hypothetical or conditional in the way you might be thinking. It is done. The question is not whether it will come. The question is whether you will be positioned to receive it. Whether your hands are open or still clenched around what you have been trying to control. Fear closes hands. Not in a failure of character, in a completely understandable human response to conditions like the ones you have lived in. When you have had to hold everything together alone for a long time, the grip becomes automatic. Releasing it does not feel safe. It feels reckless. But the grip itself is what keeps the new from being received. You cannot take hold of what I am handing you while your hands are full of what you have been managing. I am asking you to release the management, not the responsibility. You are still called to act, to steward, to move, but the white-knuckled control of outcomes that belong to me. Trust is not passivity. It is the decision to move your part and release my part to me, without demanding to hold both at once. What I have promised you is not general. It is not the kind of blessing that applies to everyone in the same form. It is shaped to fit your actual life, your specific situation, the exact details of what you have been walking through. I do not operate in generalities when I work in individual lives. I work specifically, with full knowledge of every factor in play. The word I am speaking over you today was formed for your situation the way a key is made for a specific lock. The doors that are about to open will not open for anyone else in the same way. They are yours. The provision coming is measured for what you need. I know what is in your house. I know the weight that scarcity has placed on you and on those you love. I am addressing that weight directly, not eventually, now. You are going to see movement where there has been stillness. You are going to receive in places you stopped expecting. You are going to encounter open ground where you were certain there were walls. This is not exaggeration. It is what is actually happening on the other side of what you can currently see. The activity invisible to you is about to produce results that are impossible to miss. Do not disqualify what I am doing when it arrives in an unexpected form. The answer may come through a person, through an opportunity, through a door that opens in an area you were not watching. Stay alert. Stay open. The answer is already in motion. This is the part of your story where the ground changes, not where suffering ends and happiness begins in some clean division, but where the weight begins to shift, where what has been working against you begins to move in your favor. A morning where the first thought is not dread, a situation that has been frozen that suddenly moves, a word that reaches you at exactly the right time. These will be the first signs. When they come, recognize them. Allow yourself to believe that what I told you was true, because it is. The covenant I have made with you is not contingent on your consistency. It is contingent on mine, and I am consistent. I do not change with circumstances. I do not revoke what I have spoken based on how things look on any given day. The word I gave you today stands tomorrow and in every season that follows. Return to it when circumstances try to contradict it. Return to it when the feeling of confidence is low. It is anchored in me, and I do not move. What I am asking of you right now is not dramatic. It is a small thing. The next step. One movement in the direction I am pointing. Just the first thing. One step toward me, and I will do the rest. Everything I described today, everything I have set in motion on your behalf, I will carry it through to completion. I do not begin things I do not finish. I do not bring someone to the edge of change and leave them there. Something was deposited in you in this moment. Not a feeling that will fade when circumstances press back in. A knowing, a shift in the foundational layer of what you believe is possible for your life. That shift is real. It is permanent. It is going to continue working in you long after this moment has passed. The ones you love, the ones you carry in prayer, they are in my hands too. I am not working only in your corner. I am working in theirs. The things you have asked me for on their behalf have been received. Continue to bring them to me. I hear every prayer for those closest to your heart, and I am moving in their situations with the same intention I am moving in yours. The future I am walking you toward is not a modest upgrade of the past. It is new territory. Ground that belongs to who you are now, built for this moment, and you are walking into it, one step at a time, with me beside you, holding what you cannot hold, making what is impossible into what is real. Say, I am ready, if you are stepping into everything I have spoken over you today.
We run on viewer support only. For exclusive member-only content, scan the QR or see the pinned comment. God bless you.